Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. My Karen neighbor broke into my car and ended up getting arrested. This happened about a year ago. I, 30 female, had just moved into a quiet little neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just a peaceful cul-de-sac with families, nosy retirees, and one neighbor who I quickly learned was a total Karen. At first, she seemed harmless, a little passive-aggressive, but manageable. She once left a note on my door because my welcome mat said, "Go away." She said it was unfriendly and could damage the neighborhood's image. I just laughed it off, but I should have taken it as a warning. The real trouble started when I got a new car. It's a sleek, midnight blue electric SUV with tinted windows and a security system that sends alerts to my phone. It's not a supercar, but it definitely stands out compared to the beige sedans lining the rest of the street. Almost immediately, Karen began making comments. "Oh, showing off now, are we?" Or, "We don't need flashy distractions in this neighborhood." Then came the questions. "Do you even need a car like that?" And, "You sure that's not too advanced for you?" Always said with that sweet, condescending smile. I just brushed it off. Again, I underestimated her. One Monday morning, I woke up to a notification from my car's security app. Motion detected at 3:12 a.m. I checked the footage, and there she was, Karen, in her nightgown, trying to open my car door with what looked like a set of keys and a flashlight. I was half awake and thought maybe I was dreaming. But there she was, as clear as day, tugging at the door, then walking away like nothing happened. I was floored. I had a neighbor actively trying to break into my car. So I did what any sane person would do. I downloaded the footage, saved it in multiple places, and called the non-emergency police line. They took it very seriously, especially after I mentioned she had a set of tools and appeared to be trying to gain access. 2 officers showed up that afternoon and paid Karen a visit. I watched from my window as she answered the door, still in her robe, and acted like she had no idea what they were talking about. I could see the moment they mentioned the footage, her whole demeanor changed. She suddenly got defensive, throwing her hands up, claiming she thought she saw smoke coming from my car and was just checking to make sure it wasn't on fire. Nice try. When they asked why she had a flashlight and keys, she claimed she just grabbed whatever was on the table on her way out. The cops didn't buy it, especially after I showed them the zoomed-in video of her holding what clearly was a lockpicking tool, not house keys. They asked me if I wanted to press charges. I hesitated at first, not wanting to be that neighbor, but then I thought about it. If the roles were reversed and I was creeping around her car at 3 a.m., there's no doubt in my mind she'd have me in handcuffs faster than you can say HOA violation. So I said yes. Karen was arrested that same day for attempted vehicle burglary and possession of burglary tools. The icing on the cake? As she was being put into the back of the squad car, she screamed that she was going to sue me for emotional distress. My security cam caught that part too. It's now my favorite video. After the arrest, the neighborhood went into full gossip mode. One of my neighbors brought over cookies and whispered, "We've all wanted to do something about her for years. Thank you." Apparently, I wasn't the only one Karen had messed with. She had reported kids for riding scooters on the sidewalk, tried to get a dog banned for barking, and once yelled at someone for mowing their lawn before 10 a.m. Since then, things have been quiet. Karen was back home a week later, and she hasn't made eye contact with me since, and her blinds stay shut. Moral of the story? If you're going to act like the neighborhood watchdog, make sure you're not caught breaking and entering on camera, because sometimes the neighborhood bites back. Oh, and always invest in a good security system. Worth every penny. Some say fences make good neighbors. I'd argue that cameras make even better ones. Yeah, until they make bail and start plotting what they can steal from you next. Am I the jerk for ruining my mom's marriage? My mom married her husband when I, 16 female, was 10. He wanted kids, but my mom couldn't have more, so she said she was fine with him stepping into the role of a dad for me. He agreed, and I think they both hoped I'd eventually see him as my father. But I never did. I already had a dad. He died when I was little, but he was still my dad. No one else was ever going to take that place in my mind. So I treated my mom's husband as my mom's husband, not a dad, not a stepdad I wanted to adopt me, just the man she married. We got along okay. He never mistreated me or anything, but every time he called me his daughter, something in me resisted. I would correct people if they called him my dad. He would sometimes talk about adoption, and I would always say no. He never blew up about it, but you could tell he was disappointed every time. Things really came to a head a few months ago when I had to do an art project about my parents for school, on my mom and my dad, my biological dad. I didn't even think about including my mom's husband because he's not my dad. The project wasn't supposed to be shared outside class, but my teacher liked it so much, she emailed it to my mom, telling her she should encourage me to do more art. Mom loved it and showed it to her husband. That was apparently the final straw for him. He told my mom he couldn't keep doing this. He said he wanted to be a parent more than anything, and he thought he could be mine, but I never gave him that chance. He said he couldn't wait around until I was an adult to maybe accept him. He told my mom that at 51, he still had time to find a partner who would have kids with him. And then he left. He filed for divorce. Before he walked out for good, he told me he hoped I would regret this one day because I had no idea how good I could have had it. Since then, my mom has been furious with me. She says I need to make things right, call him, tell him I see him as my dad, and try to fix this before the divorce goes through. I told her I wasn't going to lie. That's when she snapped and said I had been selfish for years, that he's been in my life almost as long as my real dad was, and now, because of me, there will be no father figure at my wedding, no grandpa for my future kids. I told her I never called him my father figure. My grandpas have always been the ones to fill that role for me. That just made her angrier. She said if I really cared about her, I would do whatever it took to save her marriage. I told her I loved her, that I had tried to get along with him for her sake, but I wasn't going to pretend he was my dad just so she could stay married. I reminded her that I didn't ask for a new dad when mine died, but I accepted that she did. So I respected that he was her husband. But that didn't mean he was my parent. She said I was just making excuses and should feel ashamed for ruining a good thing. Am I the jerk for not trying to get him back? Not the jerk. I think your mom is the jerk here. She should have respected your boundaries when she got married and made it clear to him from the start that he would never be your dad. I also think your stepdad was the jerk for trying to step into that role just because he couldn't have his own kids. It really sounds like he wanted you to fill that void, not because he genuinely wanted to be your dad. And as for the art teacher, not okay. At least ask first. Not the jerk. You did not ruin their marriage. He wanted to be a father. You didn't want him to be your father. That doesn't make you wrong. It just means you two were not on the same page. He chose to leave because he wanted a family of his own. That's his choice, not your fault. Gonna go against the grain a little here and say soft you're the jerk. You didn't have to see him as your dad, but it sounds like he really did try, and you kind of just kept him at arm's length for years. A lot of kids would love to have a stepdad who actually wants to be there, treat them like his own, and stick around for the long haul. I get that you were protecting your bond with your biological dad, and that's valid, but maybe you could have met him halfway, called him a nickname, celebrated Father's Day with him, something that showed you appreciated the effort. Instead, it sounds like he was trying to love you and just kept getting reminded that he wasn't enough. You didn't ruin their marriage, but I can see why he reached his limit. Update. The divorce filing threw our house into a weird, heavy quiet. Mom barely talked to me, unless it was to bring up what I should be doing to fix this. She wanted me to call him, apologize, promise to see him as a dad. I told her I wouldn't. I wasn't going to say something I didn't mean just to keep her marriage together. She did not take that well. One night, she practically begged me to do it. She said he had been in my life almost as long as my real dad had, that he had wanted to walk me down the aisle one day, meet my future kids, be their grandpa. She asked me if I wanted her to be alone forever. I told her I was sorry she was hurting, but I had never seen him as my dad, and that wasn't going to change just because he was threatening to leave. She asked me why I'd fight her instead of just giving her this one thing. I said because this one thing was a lie. She called me cold. She said my refusal proved how little I cared about her. I didn't yell back, but I told her that wasn't true. I said if I didn't care about her, I never would have tried to get along with him at all. I would have made her life miserable from the start, but I didn't. I accepted him as part of the family for her sake. I just never accepted him as my dad. She didn't answer. She just left the kitchen and didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. Now the house feels even quieter. I don't know if their divorce will go through, but if it does, I don't think it will ever stop being a thing my mom blames me for. I know this isn't the dramatic ending some people might want, but it's honest. I didn't choose this marriage. I didn't choose this man, and I can't make myself feel something I don't. I think he deserves to have the life he wants, even if that means leaving. And I think I deserve to be allowed to keep the memory of my real dad without feeling guilty for not replacing him. Thanks to everyone who gave good advice. It really helped me feel less alone in this. I'll update if anything major happens. Not the jerk. I'm glad you stood your ground and didn't lie just to keep the marriage together. That would have made you miserable in the long run. You didn't choose to lose your dad, and you didn't choose to gain a new one. Your mom is hurting, but she's putting way too much pressure on a teenager to fix something that was never yours to fix. You're allowed to keep your relationship with your biological dad sacred and still be respectful to your mom's husband, which it sounds like you did. This is a sad situation all around, but you can't force a bond that's not there. Your stepdad wanted to be a parent, and that's fine, but he was always taking a gamble hoping you'd come around. You're not wrong for being honest about how you felt. Hopefully your mom eventually realizes that blaming you won't change the fact that he left because he wanted a different life, not because you didn't play along. Imagine blaming your kid because your marriage fell apart. Right, that's not a kid's job. She didn't pick the guy or sign a contract saying, "I'll call you dad." And the stepdad? He could have stayed if he actually wanted to be in her life. Right, but instead, he rage quit parenthood like it was a video game. At least OP didn't cave and pretend just to keep everyone happy. Yeah, she kept it real, and that's harder than people think when the whole house is blaming you. My friend's girlfriend wants us to leave our house so she can host a small party. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years, and about 6 months ago, we finally bought our first house together. It's nothing huge, but it's ours, and we were so proud of it. To help with the mortgage, we rent out the spare bedroom to my boyfriend's best friend, James. They've known each other since they were kids. We also have a 5-month-old puppy. He's basically our child right now. He's goofy, still chewing on everything, and needs constant attention. James has a girlfriend, Megan, who's been around for about a year now. She's nice enough, but honestly kind of awkward. She barely talks to us unless we start the conversation, avoids eye contact sometimes, and generally keeps to herself. We've tried to include her, dinner invites, casual conversation, but she just doesn't seem interested. She has her own group of friends that we met once before. It was not the most memorable evening because they were all pretty drunk. My boyfriend and I don't care if people drink, but it was almost impossible to have a conversation with them. They just sort of stared at us or laughed at random times, so we mostly hung out in the kitchen with snacks. After that night, Megan never invited us to hang out with them again. Whatever. We figured she just wanted to keep her world separate. Fast forward to a few days ago. James told us that he and Megan wanted to have some friends over Wednesday night and asked if that was cool. We said yes. We told them to keep it chill, clean up after, all the usual stuff. I came home from work on Wednesday to find guests starting to arrive. I greeted everyone quickly, then went upstairs to change and let the puppy run around a bit before the house got too loud. That's when Megan knocked on my door. She asked, in this really polite but firm voice, if my boyfriend and I could go somewhere else for a few hours so they could have some privacy for their party. I thought she was joking at first. I told her that James had asked about hosting, but no one said anything about us leaving the house. She said James was supposed to make that clear. I explained that I couldn't just leave because I had to watch the puppy. Megan then offered to watch the puppy herself, basically suggesting that I leave my 5-month-old dog with her group of drunk friends so they could have the house to themselves. I said no again, as nicely as possible, but she wouldn't let it go. She kept standing there, trying to negotiate with me like I was the unreasonable one. Finally, I shut it down. I told her she and James were free to have friends over, but we weren't leaving our own home. She looked pretty frustrated when she walked away. My boyfriend came home a bit later, and I told him what happened. He was confused too, but agreed that we had every right to stay. We ended up keeping the puppy upstairs with us most of the night, just so he wouldn't get stepped on, and the party went on just fine. This morning, James texted us saying Megan was upset because we ruined her party and embarrassed her in front of her guests. According to James, she thinks we're rude and unfriendly because of that one time we hung out with her friends and didn't make more of an effort. Now, James wants us to apologize to Megan because she's been having a rough time and really needed this party to relax. Absolutely not. We told James it was rude to ask homeowners to leave their own house for a party. My boyfriend even texted him separately saying Megan should be the one apologizing. I told James I'd only accept it if she said it to my face. I get that James is in a tricky spot, but this is ridiculous. Whether I like it or not, Megan is going to keep coming around. I just don't know how to handle her moving forward. Easy peasy. Limit Megan to 2 nights a week max, or she pays rent, or she's not allowed there at all. And under no circumstances does she get to invite people over. If she wants to play hostess, she can do it at her parents' house. Let's get this straight. You own this house. James rents 1 room. Megan pays nothing. And yet, Megan thinks she can order you out of your own home so she can host a private party? She's not just socially awkward, she's entitled. She doesn't get to treat your house like a community center. Tell James you won't renew his lease if this keeps happening. And until then, Megan is not welcome if she can't respect the basic fact that you live there. I can't get over the fact that she doesn't even live there, but thinks she gets to make house rules. She's not a tenant, she's not family, she's not your friend. She's just James' girlfriend. You don't owe her anything, and you definitely don't owe her an apology. Update. Wow, I honestly didn't expect so many people to weigh in, but your comments really gave me the confidence to stand my ground. It was nice to know we weren't overreacting about being told to leave our own home. First off, thanks to everyone for their advice. A lot of people were angry for us, and it was nice to know that I wasn't being unreasonable. This update isn't quite as dramatic, but I figured people would want to know our resolution. After reading through everything, my boyfriend and I decided we needed to have a real conversation with James and Megan. I didn't want this to turn into months of awkwardness every time she came over. We agreed to sit down with them Friday night after work. I'll be honest, I was nervous. Megan isn't the easiest person to talk to in the best of times, and James can be so conflict avoidant that I wasn't sure how much he'd actually say. Before they came over, my boyfriend and I had a quick plan. Stay calm, lay everything out clearly, and make sure there was no room for misunderstanding about whose house this is. When they arrived, we all sat down in the living room. It was tense right from the start. Megan perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to leave at any moment. James looked tired, like he hadn't slept well since the party night. We started by saying that we weren't mad they had friends over, but we didn't appreciate being asked to leave our home and leave our puppy behind. James admitted he never told us Megan wanted privacy. He just said they wanted to have friends over, which is why we were caught off guard when Megan knocked on our door and tried to get us to leave. That's when Megan jumped in. She said we were the rude ones for staying because we have people over all the time and we never leave. I told her that's true, but we've never asked James to leave when we host friends. We've always invited him to hang out if he wanted to, and if he didn't, that was fine too. Then Megan tried to argue that we wouldn't have gotten along with her friends anyway. She said we're too different and that she didn't want the night to be uncomfortable. My boyfriend reminded her that we don't judge her friends for their lifestyle. We just wanted to be able to use our house. That was it. She paused for a second, then said a line that made everything click. James pays his share of the rent, so we should be able to use the house equally. That's when we told her we own the house. I wish you could have seen her face. It was like a light bulb went on that short-circuited. She stopped arguing, leaned back a little, and just stared at us for a moment like she was processing it. The room went quiet. James looked down at his hands and muttered that he had never really explained the situation to her, just that he was renting a room from us. Apparently, Megan had assumed we were all splitting the rent equally like roommates. Once the truth was out, Megan's tone shifted. She wasn't as combative anymore, but she tried to save face by saying she just wanted everyone to be comfortable. We told her we weren't trying to make her uncomfortable. We simply weren't going to be kicked out of our own home so she could host a private party. James finally spoke up more firmly. He apologized to us for not being clearer with Megan and admitted he should have told her right away that this is our house. He even turned to Megan and said she owed us an apology too. Megan eventually apologized, though it was a little grudging. We accepted it and told them both we don't mind if she has friends over, but if she wants it to be a private party that excludes us, then it needs to happen somewhere else, not in a house we live in and own. By the end of the talk, the tension had lifted a little. James looked relieved, like he had been carrying this around all week. Megan was still quiet and probably embarrassed, but at least she now knows the situation. We made it clear where everyone stands, and for now, that feels like enough. Even if you were splitting the rent equally, it would still be wrong to ask someone to leave their own house for a party. That's not how sharing space works. Honestly, James should have told her a long time ago that you two owned the place. Sounds like he avoided telling her because he didn't want to bruise his own ego. Good on you for sitting her down and making it clear. She has no excuses left now. If she tries anything like this again, I hope you won't hesitate to tell her she's no longer welcome. She can be resentful all she wants. It's not her house. Imagine renting one room and thinking you get to evict the landlords for the night. Yeah, Megan must have thought she unlocked the House Takeover DLC. Plot twist, turns out she was just the unpaid guest character. And now she's been downgraded to background NPC status. Karen tried to cut me off at the store. I asked her why she's more important than me. This happened a while back when my husband bought me a laptop from Sainsbury's. He worked there at the time, so we got a decent discount, which made it worth getting from there instead of online. I was pleased with it at first, but after a few days, I realized it wasn't quite right for what I needed. Wrong specs, a bit slow. So back it went. I headed into the store on a weekday afternoon when it wasn't too busy, but not dead either. The electronics counter had 2 lads working. I queued up, waited my turn, and when one of them was free, he came over with a smile and asked how he could help. I explained about the laptop, showed my receipt, and he said no problem. We went over to the laptop section together to look at my options. He was lovely, polite, chatty, really helpful. We were going over specs and prices when all of a sudden a woman swooped in out of nowhere and started talking to him like I wasn't standing right there. He glanced at me, then back at her, and very nicely said he was already helping someone, but there was another assistant back at the desk. She didn't look thrilled, but she left. I smiled at him and told him not to worry. I've worked retail before and I know how it is, and we carried on. Not 2 minutes later, another woman marched over. This one was older, louder, and very clearly thought she was top priority. She didn't wait for a pause. She just launched straight into her request, waving a product around and talking over me. The poor lad looked a bit torn, but repeated what he had said to the first woman, that he was already with the customer and she could get help at the desk. Instead of leaving, she folded her arms and said she'd only be a minute. I turned to her with my sweetest voice and said, "Excuse me, what makes you more important than me?" She froze, like she hadn't expected me to speak. Then she said, "It'll only take a minute." I kept looking at her, still calm but a bit firmer this time, and asked again, "What makes you more important than me?" This time, no smile. You could have heard a pin drop in that aisle. She looked flustered, glanced at the lad for backup, but he just gestured toward the desk again. She let out a proper humph and stomped away, muttering under her breath. My lovely young assistant just about burst out laughing. He said that was the best shutdown he had seen and admitted I was a bit scary for a moment there. I gave him a big grin and we had a laugh about it before finishing up. He sorted me out with the perfect model, made sure all the accessories were in the box, and I walked away with a laptop that's still going strong years later. "Excuse me, what makes you more important than me?" That's such a classy way of saying, pipe down, love. And the best part is she said it twice. That second round was the knockout punch. Poor lad nearly fainted, but you know he was rooting for OP the whole time. You know he's telling that story in the break room to this day. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter I won't budge even if she never speaks to me again? My daughter Casey, who's 17, worked and saved up money for around a year to afford a better car than we could buy her with our family budget. My other daughter, Alana, who's 16, who has ADHD, recently got her driver's license and asked to drive Casey's car. Casey allowed it, but Alana ended up having a bad accident about 6 months ago, which basically rendered the car unusable. The insurance payout wasn't nearly enough to cover a replacement, and with Alana's medical bills from the accident, thankfully there was no permanent damage, just a broken arm and leg, there was no way we could afford to replace Casey's car immediately. Alana was very apologetic to Casey, and so were we, since we couldn't afford to replace our car. Casey didn't accept our apology and has been avoiding us, skipping family dinners, and acting as though her mom, Alana, and I don't even exist. She only talks to us when she needs a form signed for school. I begged her to come to a family therapy session, and she eventually agreed to, but with the condition that Alana couldn't be present. In the therapy session, she told us that she wouldn't resume a relationship with us until we replace her car, which realistically won't be until next year. When the therapist asked how she expected us to do that, Casey said we could just make Alana work to earn the money. The issue is that Alana has severe ADHD and already struggles to manage her schoolwork. I'm worried that making her work to earn the money will harm her grades and have significant ramifications for the future. Casey said, "Well, she should have thought about that before destroying my car. I don't care. I'm not going to speak to any of you unless I have my car replaced." I responded that she was free to avoid speaking to me for as long as she wanted, but I'm not going to permanently harm her sister's future to get her a car earlier. My wife agrees with me that we need to stand firm in our position, but is also genuinely afraid that Casey might never speak to her again. I understand that her car was ruined, but as a parent, I need to look out for all of my kids, not just one. I also don't want to set the precedent that emotional blackmail will work, even if what you're asking for is unreasonable. Am I the jerk? Alana aside, what lesson will Casey take from this at 17? Hopefully not that her good habits and hard work leads nowhere. Anyone wondering how much convincing it took for Casey to let Alana drive her car? You're the jerk. You're just trying to protect Alana from the consequences of her actions. If her condition is that bad, why was she allowed to drive in the first place? You're the jerk. You say you have to look after both your kids, but you're only looking after one. You're protecting Alana's future by not giving her any consequences for her actions, like getting a job. But Casey is already suffering the consequences. She's lost her car, but you brush over that. Favoritism is pretty clear here. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance I don't want my Temu engagement ring? I'm 27 female. My fiance, 29 male, proposed to me a few weeks ago. It caught me completely by surprise, but we've been together for 3 years and things have been going great, so I was really excited and said yes. I really liked the ring when I first saw it, and my friends and family all think it's stunning. It's an oval cut with diamonds across the band. I asked where he got it and he wouldn't tell me, only saying he got a really great deal on it. I didn't think much of it until yesterday when we were in bed. I asked him if it was a diamond or something else, mainly out of curiosity. I don't have a preference. He said he didn't know and would have to look it up. When I glanced at his phone, he was on Temu. I asked him if he got it from there and he didn't respond. I asked again and he replied with something like, "Does it matter?" before leaving the room and ended up sleeping on the couch. I spent all night feeling confused. Today, I decided to download the app and I looked up my ring. I found one that looked identical, listed at $38. I'm mad. He makes good money, $200,000 a year, and I feel like he could have spent more on a ring than one from Temu. Am I the jerk for telling him I don't want it? Update. He came home while I was FaceTiming a friend about this. I hung up with her and then talked to him for an hour. He apologized for sleeping on the couch and said he needed time to think. He doesn't agree with my concerns about the rings and says he did research and that it was highly rated. He says if the ring breaks, he'll replace it, but didn't specify that it would be of higher quality. I've also received messages that the ring could be harmful to my health and that Temu has poor standards for their jewelry and labor practices, so now I really don't want to wear it. He left and went to his brother's house. Normally I'd go with him, but things are just tense. Am I the jerk for telling him I still don't want to wear it? Update. He came home this morning while I was in a work from home meeting. These comments made my head spin all night. I only got about 3 hours of sleep, so I admit I may be in the wrong for bringing up his finances. Regarding the gold digger rumors, when we met, I was making more than him and I often paid for things. His high-paying job is a recent development. I have my own money and I don't need his. I asked him what was going on, if there was anything he needed to tell me, or if he was testing me by doing this. This really set him off. He said, "What kind of person do you think I am? You think I'm a cheapskate? A liar? You obviously think very poorly of me." But still, he never gave me a reason. I asked why he was deflecting every question to victimize himself and avoid my questions, and he tried to leave again. I tried de-escalating and told him I see where he's coming from, but I need to know if he still loves me. He was immediately apologetic and still wants to get married. He said I can pick out my own ring and buy it with my own money. He said he's sick of talking about this and that it's water under the bridge now. He's acting like his normal self again since this conversation. I hear him out there skipping around and humming to himself happily, and it's actually upsetting me. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but I don't think I can handle a marriage with someone like this. I was with my ex for 15 months, and he bought me multiple rings, not engagement, off of Temu. Not one lasted longer than a month. All turned my finger green or gave me a rash. He was not working much at the time, so I appreciated that he got me something, but I honestly liked the things that he found on the ground when he was working better than the problematic, for multiple reasons, Temu crap. Not the jerk. I don't care about how expensive a ring is, but the point of it is to last, so buying it from Temu of all places is real crappy. I don't know. Normally, I'd celebrate someone who didn't buy into all the engagement, wedding, spend yourself to bankruptcy thing, but $38? I'm tight with money, but I'd spend a little more than that to at least get a band that was reasonably high carat gold, and then save on the gemstones. Not the jerk. You aren't asking for a $5,000 ring, you're asking for a ring made out of a known material that isn't essentially from Claire's. You got costume jewelry. A Temu ring tells me that he wants a Temu marriage, thoughtless, low quality, and temporary. No one needs to break the bank to buy an engagement ring. You should do the best that you can and try to make your partner happy. But he basically scrolled on Facebook and picked you out something shiny. Not the jerk. Imagine a wild Karen using real estate fraud to steal her friend's house. That's exactly what happens in our next video, the one that just popped up on the screen. So give it a tap with your thumb or a click with your remote. Karen and I are already waiting for you.